Dead Space, the sci-fi 2008 horror game brought to us by the recently destroyed Visceral Games. I mean, I guess there's no better time to review it, right? Because Visceral's work will be missed. Well, when it was Visceral's work, not being twisted to be able to force in microtransactions and other crap. And I mean, in all fairness, I'd planned out to play this game for over a year now, but I mean, it's nothing if not serendipitous timing. For me, that is. Sorry again, Visceral.
You are Isaac Clarke, an engineer sent on a mission to repair a planet cracker ship. Did you already catch how much Visceral likes to play with words? Isaac, as in Isaac Asimov, and Clarke, as in Arthur C. Clarke, two of the greatest science fiction authors of all time. However, as the literary idiot that I am, I will call one thing into question very quickly. The plot of Dead Space is much more science fantasy than it is science fiction. Yes, the distinction isn't too large for some people, but if you're going to pay homage to the great science fiction writers with your protagonist, then please, know the difference. If your character's hallucinations physically interact with the world, if there's a magical marker that turns humans into other creatures and makes them go insane just by existing, that is science fantasy. Blaming it on aliens does not make it fiction. Alright, mini rant over. I won't go overboard because it's genuinely meant well, and the game is good. The first time you see the necromorph, some of the designs are just so disturbing, but others just aren't scary from the outset. What's really scary are some of the set pieces that don't involve monsters. The game is so incredibly loud. Music stings as necromorphs jump out of vents, things scream off in the distance, and the soundtrack pumps you up to be more afraid of whatever's coming. The problem is that by making everything so incredibly loud, it takes away from the scare factor. It's less, oh god, not an enemy, and more, oh, there's that noise, alright, what do I shoot today? The biggest, toughest enemy in the game, the Regenerator, turned into a joke to my stream and I. Shoot out both legs, run around the level doing what needs to be done while he crawls after you slowly. Enemies can even just be run around. There were a few times in the game where I just needed an item out of a series of rooms. Run in, follow the blue line to where I remember it going from last time, grab the item, run back, door shuts itself behind me, necromorphs can't open doors.
The fact that every enemy had its own special name during my stream didn't help the scare factor at all either. Giving it its own little name cuts down on how frightening a thing is going to be. Oh no, get the swarm off me! That's terrifying. Oh god, it's more pancakes. Slightly less than terrifying. And I'm more scared of the pancakes than any other enemy in the game. What's a pancake? Well, I'm glad you asked.
These are your basic necromorph. The game calls them slashers. I called them necromorphs like a racist. Everything else got a real name though, so let's go through them like the Sesame Street of space hell. Lurkers. Babies. Leapers. Scorpions. Swarms. Pancakes. Infector. Oh god, no, stop that! Super Slasher. Fast one. Drag Tentacle. Tentacle, what else would I call it? Pregnant. Fat Man. Brute. Gimp Suit Rhino. There's a dude in a gimp suit somewhere down here. Okay, now we'll go this way. A rhino in a gimp suit, I guess? Hi. The heck are you? So I'm gonna go with yes. That was the rhino in a gimp suit. I don't like him. Divider segment. Octopus. Guardian. Wall person. The Hunter. Regenerator. I also called him the Special Boy. Weezer. Frog. Exploder. Bomb. Twitchers. I actually just called these Twitchies without ever knowing their real name. That isn't a scary name, Visceral. Come on, up your game. And finally, the Lanky Divider, or as we came to know him, the Tentacle Gentleman. I despise tentacle gentlemen. Now that we know the difference between a baby and a frog, let's discuss what was genuinely unnerving and disturbing. Whenever the game decided to have a quieter moment, never failed to get to me. Every now and then you'll encounter something that's just incredibly off, usually focused on a remaining crew member of the ship that you came to repair. Their movements are so badly off from normal and stand out from the otherwise incredibly loud game that they worm their way into your subconscious so that the next time you encounter a quiet moment, even if there's nothing there, somewhere in the back of your mind, you feel disturbed. I want to say there weren't nearly enough of those moments, but with any more, they might not have been so effective. I wanted more, but the developers knew when to leave me hungry. Though with that being said, all those moments vanish after the first half of the game, so I don't know, maybe I really could have done with some more. What I do know I could do with less of is the turret sections. Oh, but Otter, there were only 2. I know! And they both sucked! The turret guns are inaccurate, especially when firing at a moving target, which you're doing. You almost have to be shooting a second or 2 in the future to hit anything. And if it moves to some parts of the screen or in some directions, you can forget about hitting it. It's 2008 at the release of this game. If I want to play a game from 1979, I'll play Asteroids on my own time. Not a somehow inferior version stuck as a little forced-in minigame inside my sci-fantasy horror shooter. Overall, the game was a lot of fun. Even if it's not actually scary, it's hard not to panic when a crowd of necromorphs assaults you. What makes this game great, however, is that even if you do, you can still probably make it through the fight. But you're actively rewarded for thinking. If you carefully target bombs first, you can take out enemies near them before they reach you. Careful, precise strikes will take out the fat men without opening up their bellies. If you do that, they never give birth to pancakes or babies, and the fight is much easier. By the end of the game, I was recognizing those moments and choices and responding accordingly. The atmosphere is also incredible. Sure, the music can get a bit over the top once a fight breaks out, but every moment something might make a noise. Any noise you hear is probably something you will have to deal with. Nothing struck terror into my heart like the flip-flopping of a horde of pancakes or the weird, echoing tones of a tentacled gentleman. Honestly, they almost got the name Space Whales when I heard one for the first time before I fought it. What the game was, however, was predictable. I've never actually played through Dead Space before, although I saw one friend play it when it first came out, and played the first 2 or 3 chapters several years back. Yet within the first hour, you can tell who the bad guy actually is. Despite this, the game keeps trying to hide it and pretends like it's being so very clever about it. It acts like your wife being dead was some big secret you had to find out at the end. But, come on, there was no way she survived. That's your big reveal? At one point, the big villain tries to run off with the marker and you literally press a button and recall the shuttle she's on. Moron, you knew I could do that. What are you doing with your life? One argument for the game that came up a lot in my stream was that the cliches this game uses liberally, such as enemies jumping out on the elevator or popping out of vents constantly, or the "you were insane" reveal, come from this game originally. Therefore, it's fine because this game started them.
Now, I honestly have no idea if that's true or not. I'm not up to date on my horror games, especially not my early horror games that came out during the time when I was still an innocent babby that was scared by everything around me. But whether it did or didn't start these isn't the point. As with any other piece of art, a huge part of what a game is what it leaves behind and does for other things that will come along and follow it.
We can see that a book or a type of artwork introduces new ideas, but if it does so poorly, then later works take what it did and expand on it to improve it entirely, then there still must be something in that work that causes us to return to it. Otherwise, it simply gets a small cliff note saying, "First known example of X type of artwork," and no one really cares about it. So Dead Space needs to hold up without arguing, well, it was the one that created these horror cliches. If this really was the first, then maybe they became cliched because they were overused here, and it sold well. I'm easily frightened, and even I didn't find them scary. Every time the game did something I found genuinely effective, disturbing, or startling that was intentional, I'm not going to count the messages from your allies popping up and startling me more than once, I gave them a point. At the end of the game, it had accrued 13 points. Roughly 7 hours, and less than a point every half hour.
Before anyone starts yelling, though, let's return to something I just said. But there still must be something worth returning to. And in Dead Space, there is. What points there are really effective, and they will stick with you. Now, another thing to consider was the ending of the game. My ending was apparently completely different from any other ending of the game that I've seen so far. I don't know if this was some kind of glitch on my end, or what had happened, but if I'd had the right ending, it certainly would have gotten a point. Look, this was my ending.
I'm sorry.
What was he looking at? What did he look over at?
Yeah, not really scary. Now, here's the normal ending.
I'm so...
See? Way more intense! I can't seem to find anything about the version of the ending that I got, although they say the ending was changed somewhere in the middle, but it stayed relatively the same, so I don't know if it's an actual change or just a glitch, but I can't award it a point for something that didn't appear in my game. So, back on focus.
While maybe not terribly scary, Dead Space was certainly a great game. It was a lot of fun to play through, offered rewards for skillful play, and it's downright gorgeous, in a gruesome, gory death way. Some difficulties with mouse control due to the port job really don't hold it back once you crank up that intensity, and my complaints are all outweighed by how much fun I had playing through it. Now, there was DLC for the game released practically at the same time as the game came out. While this is slimy and disgusting of EA, as per their usual, I can say that it had no real impact on the game's playability. Well, I was acutely aware the entire time of playing that there were costumes and suits that I had no access to even had I been willing to pay for them, because the in-game DLC shop no longer exists, thus that content no longer exists. But had I never known that, I wouldn't have known anything was missing. So, while it's always worth mentioning the Pond Scum level move of practically on-release DLC, and that these suits seem to give you a distinct in-game advantage in trade for money in a single-player game, in that the max level rig you can acquire on your first playthrough provides 20% reduced damage, and the $4 DLC tank suit provides you with 60%, I won't count it against the game. This time.
So, gathering all my scattered thoughts back together, this game was a wonderful time to play through. It was a blast and so enjoyable. Don't necessarily expect to be horrified or terrified by it, but it can still build up some excellent suspense and a wonderful atmosphere in the worst possible way. So if you're looking for some action set in a fairly creepy science fantasy universe that's trying desperately to convince itself it's sci fiction, definitely a game worth checking out any day.
I need it higher. Hang on, I need to set it.
Whoa!
Is that good?